Friends, good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of SPTV News Live. Now, today is an update in the on what's going on in Leah Land versus the cult of Scientology, and this has to do with their legal lawsuit where she is alleging fair game tactics that have been perpetrated against her since she began speaking out about the cult. Now, we've covered this in two previous videos about a month ago. You can see here Leah Remini files amended lawsuit. Scientology harassment continues. And just a couple of weeks ago, we had an update on this. Leah Remini's shocking sworn testimony as the Scientology harassment is exposed. And what we have going on today, in typical fashion, is that Scientology has decided to file an anti-SLAAP. Now, this is just a preview of what's to come next week. But, well, let's get into this legal drama as to what's going on. And again, this is just, they're just going to be fighting back and forth until this actually goes to court. And Scientology is going to do everything they can, no matter how ludicrous it is, to try to put roadblocks in the way of this. And well, I guess I'll talk about it in a minute, but in their defense, from the position of a brainwashed Scientologist, this does actually make sense. At least I can see where they're coming from. So Scientology Church takes legal action. They've decided to file an anti-SLAAP motion in the Leah Remini lawsuit. Actually, let me pull you guys into the chat here and say hello. And we can do the usual setup because you can see that okay, right? So what's an anti-SLAAP? Well, as the name suggests, the anti-SLAAP law protects you from SLAPPs, which stands for Strategic Lawsuits Against Public Participation. This happens when someone, usually a rich person or a company or a rich cult, silences their critics by, quote, slapping them with a costly lawsuit. So you can already see the ludicrousness of this because, Leah Remini is simply trying to file a civil lawsuit, and she had to amend it because she alleged that the harassment continued. So you have the big bad wolf corporation of the cult of Scientology, which is saying that Leah Remini is the big bad company that's attacking her rather than the reverse, which is what this law is usually reserved for. So let's read through this, and we'll hear some of Scientology's gibberish in their actual motion. So as mentioned, Scientology cult takes legal action. They're going to file an anti-SLAAP motion and Leah Remini lawsuit next week. The cult of Scientology attorneys have filed court papers indicating their plans to bring an anti-SLAAP suit in defense of the majority of claims made by actress Leah Remini and her amended complaint. Again, that amended complaint is covered in detail in those two videos I just showed you. Remini, a former cult member, alleges that she experienced increased harassment after suing the cult earlier this year. On Wednesday, Scientology attorneys will request permission from Judge Randolph Hammock to file a brief of up to 30 pages supporting their motion. The state's anti-SLAAP law aims to prevent individuals from using the court system or threatening lawsuits to intimidate those exercising their First Amendment rights. Again, you can see the kind of reverse psychology of the cult. In their court papers, the cult lawyers state that the majority of the allegations in the 68-page revised suit pertain to constitutionally protected speech or activity of the cult. Quote, religious speech is undeniably protected, and speech regarding the cult of Scientology specifically is deemed a matter of public interest, argued the cult attorneys. In a two-page response also filed on Tuesday, that's just yesterday, Remini's attorneys claim that 30 pages are excessive and unnecessarily burdensome for the court. However, they leave the decision to Judge Hammock. As you're going to see, this is basically a war over the number of papers that can be filed. 30 papers versus 20, as you'll see. The cult attorneys state in their court papers that over the past decade, Remini has, quote, created a profitable career promoting hate and inciting violence against the Church of Scientology, its members, and its leaders. Again, project much because that's exactly what they do. But in their brainwashed state, they feel like they're being attacked by Leah Remini, who's a suppressive person. So you can see from their point of view where they're coming from, but to the outside world, it looks fucking crazy. According to the cult lawyers, Remini has pursued her objectives through her autobiography, a cable television show, podcasts, and appearances on broadcast television and radio. Thank God, because she's exposed it to so many more people that just thought it was a wacky UFO cult, and now they realize that how dangerous they are on a broader scale. They further claim that they will provide, quote, multiple examples of individuals who committed acts of violence against the cult while explicitly claiming Remini as their inspiration. Again, from their point of view, they see it as they're being attacked, and I can understand it because Leah, when I was in the cult, would be seen as a very dangerous person trying to take down mankind's only hope for salvation. I know that sounds crazy, but when you believe it, it really seems like she's trying to damage mankind's only hope. Anyways, so she's protruded. So what she's doing with this cable television show from the regular world's point of view is exposing people so that they won't be harmed by Scientology. And as I said, from their point of view, and I understand it, unfortunately, they feel like she's doing something really bad. Remini initially filed her suit on August 2nd, alleging civil harassment, stalking, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and defamation. Cult leader David Miscavige is named as the defendant in both the original suit and the amended complaint. The amended suit states, quote, since Ms. Remini's complaint was filed, she and others have experienced ongoing aggressive harassment. As an example, the suit cites a cult statement suggesting that Remini consider moving to Russia in light of the threats and violence generated by her remarks. The suit also alleges evidence of potential fraud on several of Remini's credit cards and a hacking incident that caused financial losses for her tutor. The tutor had received Scientology promotions at his home before the lawsuit was filed, indicating the cult's awareness of individuals associated with Remini, according to the complaint. Again, that was all covered in detail in the previous two videos. And then she filed an updated complaint on August 29th. The 53-year-old actress seeks unspecified compensatory and punitive damages. She repeats the allegations that Scientologists have launched a campaign to ruin her life and livelihood since she publicly left the cult in 2013. The updated suit claims that for the past decade, Remini has been stalked, surveilled, harassed, threatened, intimidated, and subjected to deliberate misinformation through Scientology-controlled social media accounts. Again, we have to say alleged, but I have no doubt that they have definitely been doing that because of how high profile she is. What do you think that would do to somebody mentally if that went on year after year for a decade? It also states that the organization has targeted her family members, friends, colleagues, and business associates, leading to a loss of personal relationships, business contracts, and other opportunities. I can definitely state that happened to me when I left the cult, big time. Maybe I should file a lawsuit. Remini previously stated, quote, with this lawsuit, I hope to protect my rights as guaranteed by the U.S. Constitution to speak the truth and report facts about Scientology. I strongly believe that religious freedom should not give anyone the authority to intimidate, harass, and abuse those exercising their First Amendment rights. Exactly. There's nothing wrong with exposing a dangerous cult, and you shouldn't be harassed endlessly for doing that. But again, from Scientology's perspective, to use a metaphor, they kind of see Leah Remini as the evil cult that's trying to take down the good guys. And then in 2015, as we know, Remini published the book Troublemaker, Surviving Hollywood and Scientology. And she also hosted the documentary series with Mike Rinder called Leah Remini, Scientology in the Aftermath from 2016 to 2019. Strap in because we're going to read the legalese gibberish that the cult decided to write. So we thought you'd want to see some of the language from the filing. Again, this is just a teaser. The real response, the anti-SLAPP motion, that's coming next week. But already it's a word salad of legalese. So this is what the cult says. This case concerns a more than decade-long campaign by plaintiff, that's Leah Remini, against her former cult, the cult of Scientology. Over the past decade, she's made a lucrative career spewing hate and inspiring violence against the Church of Scientology, its parishioners, and the ecclesiastical elf of the cult. She's done this through her autobiography, a cable television show, podcasts, and appearances on broadcast television and radio. She's used those platforms to call the church pure fucking evil and its parishioners as sick assholes, fucking like body snatchers, and morally depleted. Well, can't argue with that. It's pretty on point. And even to falsely accuse the ecclesiastical midget of the religion of unidentified, quote, crimes. David Miscavige, what crimes have we missed? Everything she's saying, in my opinion, is absolutely accurate. The cult has and continues to respond to plaintiff slander in various public fora. On August 29th, 2023, plaintiff filed her FAC, that stands for First Amended Complaint, which seeks to impose liability on defendants for their responses to plaintiffs' attacks on them. The FAC alleges that, quote, for the past 10 years, defendants have deployed hundreds of Scientology-controlled and coordinated social media accounts to spread, quote, malicious and fraudulent rumors about her. This supposed 10-year campaign, this is the cult speaking, against, notice they use campaign in quotes, this supposed 10-year, quote, campaign against plaintiff allegedly consists of dozens of individual defamatory statements, such as allegedly calling plaintiff a bigot and a fraud whose, quote, words lead to hate and violence. The FAC alleged defendants conducted the campaign through, quote, again, they have to use quotes to try to make it seem like this isn't happening, through hundreds, probably more like thousands, of websites and social media accounts through over 5,000 separate domains, including from just one website alone, 131 videos and 61 blog posts, all supposedly containing defamatory content. These and other videos cited in the FAC contain interviews with plaintiff's family members and other third parties who recount their negative experiences with plaintiff, such as that she is an abusive employer, is a racist, and reneges on promises to pay for cancer treatments. That thing regarding the cancer treatment is funny. Basically, Leah was being disconnected from a family member. They were begging her for money, even though they were talking shit about her. And one of them needed a cancer treatment, and they blame Leah for not providing the money that they're so used to. That's my interpretation of it. The FAC asserts that the entirety of this library of material is defamatory. The FAC also asserts that defendants orchestrated hundreds of letters to broadcasters and sponsors to urge them to boycott plaintiff's anti-Scientology television show. Moreover, the FAC alleges that plaintiff was, quote, surveilled by private investigators through their lawyers, thus implicating protected pre-litigation petitioning activity as the basis of the claims. The FAC purports to situate the alleged campaign against plaintiff in no less than 70 years of distorted history of the cult of Scientology and purported Scientology teachings and doctrines throughout the FAC. Here's where they get righteous and say that they can kind of do what they want, including alleged fair game activities, gang stalking, killing pets, etc. Religious speech is, of course, protected, and speech about the cult of Scientology in particular has been recognized as speech on a matter of public interest. And then you can see this Weinberg versus Fiesel, not to be confused with Weasel, all of which is to say there is a lot of ground to cover in drafting an anti-SLAPP motion against the complaint that attempts to tortify 10 years worth of literally thousands of media exchanges between plaintiff and defendants, as well as the history of the cult. To give just one example, plaintiff alleges that defendants defamed her by allegedly asserting that she inspired threats and acts of violence against the cult, its parishioners, and its leadership. As part of satisfying prong 2 of the anti-SLAPP analysis to show that plaintiff cannot meet her burden of providing her claim, defendants will provide multiple examples of persons who committed acts of violence against the church, while expressly claiming plaintiff as their inspiration. But just to counter this single allegation of defamation by demonstrating the truth of the defendant's statement requires some time and, of course, pages. And when the various allegations of protected speech and conduct are tallied up, defendants' anticipated anti-SLAPP motion, this is the cult's anti-SLAPP motion that they're planning for next week, will seek to strike, of course, no less than 114 individual paragraphs of the FAC, in addition to entire clauses of action. Given that every single allegedly defamatory statement cited in the FAC, as well as plaintiff's allegations relating to pre-litigation petitioning activity and defendants' religious practices, implicate protected speech under the anti-SLAPP statute, defendants are preparing to file an anti-SLAPP motion addressing plaintiff's allegations. In other words, to translate this legalese gobbledygook, they're saying that they're protected by free speech to hire private investigators, like I said, to terrorize people and to do their fair game tactics, which they've never ceased despite saying that they have. For efficiency's sake, well, thank you, Scientology, defendants, that's the cult, sought to file a combined brief of 30 pages rather than filing two separate briefs of 15 pages each and proposed that to the plaintiff's counsel. To that end, counsel for the cult sent the following email to the plaintiff's counsel. And because they sent this to Leah's counsel, we now get a sneak peek of what they're planning next week. Counsel, we're preparing an anti-SLAPP motion as a responsive pleading to your client's complaint to be filed on or before October 25th, rather than have separate motions filed by Church of Scientology International and Religious Technology Center, with separate oppositions filed by you. We propose that CSI/RTC file a single motion, but with the allowable pages for moving papers, oppositions, and replies doubled. This would mean, but with the allowable pages for moving. Okay, in other words, they don't want to double it up. They just want to put RTC and CSI in one shot, which is kind of unusual for the cult because usually any little thing they can do to stall, and that would certainly stall it, would be thrown in there. This would mean that CSI/RTC file a motion of no more than 30 pages. Plaintiff has 30 pages for an opposition, that's Leah, and any reply would be limited to 20 pages. We think this makes more sense and is more efficient than doubling the number of motions, oppositions, and replies. If you agree, we can prepare a stipulation to file with the court. Stand by for a drink of water. So the plaintiffs, Leah's counsels, responded, quote, we agree that a single motion and a single opposition makes sense, but they proposed instead that the joint opening brief be limited to 20 pages. Plaintiff's opposition limited to 20 pages, and the cult's reply limited to 10 pages. Counsel for CSI, that's Church of Scientology International, replied that it, quote, was unreasonable to ask us to accept a lower number of total pages than we are entitled to, particularly in light of hundreds of allegations in the complaint. Plaintiff's counsel responded that they would not agree. They claimed in response that CSI and RTC's issues were identical, and thus more pages were not warranted. This response is not correct. RTC has independent issues it would raise in a combined brief, and it addresses neither the number of allegations made nor that CSI and RTC could separately file briefs totaling 30 pages to address the allegations. Again, they're just arguing that they want their 30 pages, not 20. Unable to reach an agreement, defendants gave notice of the application yesterday at 9:30 a.m. Given that defendants are seeking no more total pages than they are entitled to under CR whatever, and the extraordinary number of allegations that must be addressed in a lengthy FAC, the request to file a consolidated memorandum of no more than 30 pages is justified under that ruling right there. Furthermore, to the extent plaintiff seeks to limit defendant's total briefing to 20 pages, that clearly is impermissible and would cause the defendants, that's the cult, irreparable harm in depriving them of their right to fully address the voluminous allegations against them. Give us our 30 pages, they're saying to the court. As stated above, counsel for defendants are willing to provide a confidential draft of the memorandum to the court for in-camera review. So to sum up, because the two sides couldn't agree on how many pages Scientology should submit in their anti-SLAPP, we get a sneak peek of what they're going to do next week. Thank you, Leah. Now, can Scientology get away with using a law, the anti-SLAPP, that, as we mentioned before, was designed to protect small protesters from big, deep-pocketed bullies? We pointed out in the past how ironic and absolutely disgusting it is that the cult uses the anti-SLAPP strategy in order to pretend that they're the little guy being abused by the big bully. In this case, Leah and her lawsuit. So, is the court going to fall for it? And also, what has Leah's response been? Fear not, my friends. She is bolstering up her legal team. So this also happened, I believe, yesterday. So since Leah Remini filed her harassment and stalking lawsuit against Scientology in August, she's filed additional allegations in an amended complaint. Again, that's covered in the previous videos. And a request for injunctive relief to prevent the cult to continue smearing her and intimidating her family. It says here Scientology still hasn't provided any kind of response. Well, we just got the response to the lawsuit today. But once again, Leah is moving ahead with yet another set of filings, this time to beef up her legal team with a couple of out-of-town heavy hitters. So either in response to this that just happened or Leah anticipating, she's added a couple of new people here. And they have some success, shall we say, as you're going to see in their past. Joining Brad Edwards, Brittany Henderson, and Seth Lerman, Those are her current lawyers in this civil case. 2 out-of-town attorneys have filed motions with the court to join the case, including a former Washington, D.C. Attorney General, as well as a South Carolina lawyer who had led litigation against manufacturers of unsafe women's health products. Just having a little fun there. Don't come at me for doing a shitty accent. So there's Brad Edwards, Brittany Henderson, and Seth Lerman. Those are her current civil attorneys. The former D.C. Attorney General is Linda Singer, a partner at Motley Rice, and her colleague at the same firm is South Carolina-based Carmen Scott is the other lawyer asking to join the case. Scott's focused on litigation against manufacturers of women's health products, including the safety problems with Johnson & Johnson baby powder. Interesting. Singer was D.C. Attorney General 2007 to 2008. Her areas of litigation have included suing opioid manufacturers and subprime mortgage lenders. And there's the ladies, Linda Singer and Carmen Scott. Go get them, Tiger. Singer and Brad Edwards also have something else in common. They both were involved in representing victims of predator financier, the infamous Jeffrey Epstein, who did not kill himself. In September, that really paid off for Singer and her firm, which stands to receive a quarter of a $105 million settlement with the Epstein estate in litigation brought by the U.S. Virgin Islands, where Epstein reportedly brought victims. And by the way, just to mention this real quick, since Scientology does actually have ties to Epstein in a cursory way, I'm going to link in the description box this amazing documentary that you can only see on my BitChute channel. It's all free, but you have to go over to BitChute to watch it. And it's called Epstein's Shadow. And it covers Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey's partner in crime, but it's probably the best documentary ever made on the thing. And I highly recommend checking it out on the channel if you haven't. Okay. Also, both Singer and Scott are representing Jane Doe number 1 in her lawsuit against Scientology, its leader David Miscavige, and Sea Org recruiter Gavin Potter. And there's also an update on that, which we will most likely do later today. And there's other stuff to cover too that just kind of came in. So that's it, man. I mean, they are making a ridiculous attempt to do something that's probably not going to work. I don't see how it could, because as mentioned before, Scientology is the big bad wolf corporation, which is what anti-SLAPPs are made for, to protect people from being picked on by them. And in their twisted heads, because everything's reversed in Scientology, they see Leah as the big bad corporation with the pockets full of money that are coming after her. Any questions, guys, before we roll out of here? Like I said, there's plenty more to come later today and tonight. This is a short video, and we're always going to keep you up to date on what's going on, to keep a running timeline on the news section so you can follow along. And if you haven't, my friends, just so it doesn't get too confusing, if you watch the SPTV news, you know, the Leah Remini lawsuits, we got the Gavin Potter one and plenty of other ones. If you're not up to date on those videos, please check them out, because as we keep adding on to it, you'll have all the information, and I won't have to keep saying you have to watch the previous videos. But it is fascinating to watch this in real time, what Scientology does, and to keep a running record of their shenanigans. And also the courts seem to be getting up to speed, not least because Danny Masterson got fucking life in prison. Faye, how are you doing, my friend? Follow-up question. What the hell? Follow-up question. Was T-Flix pressured to take Leah's series down because of this lawsuit? Okay, that's Netflix, right? Good question. Was Netflix pressured to take? Well, maybe they just, I don't know the answer to that. Faye, if someone in the comments or someone in the chat knows, please leave a comment afterwards in the comment section. I don't know. I think Netflix probably just, I don't know, but what they could have done is ran out, their time to run it. I think you can find it on, is it still on A&E? I don't know, but I'm sure you can find it somewhere. And if not, you can always check a torrent site. I have no idea if they took it down, but it's certainly within their realm to do so. It's possible. But Netflix did run it for quite a bit of time, and I don't think they were intimidated then. So I don't think that's the case. Any other questions before we roll out of here, my friends? So easy to see if you throw up those question marks. God, there's a lot of you here already. Okay, so what we're going to discuss later on is Jada Pinkett Smith. She just put out a book and bullshitted her way about, justifying that she wasn't a Scientologist and all this shit. It's interesting enough to go over. I do want to cover that latest update on the Gavin Potter lawsuit and how one of the Jane Does is fighting back at the religious arbitration bullshit that they tried to pull. Again, we've covered that in the past. I will link it in the description box. Let me just check any other questions before we roll out of here. Okay, thanks. Right there at the end. Caught it at the last minute, my friend. Jada, yeah, no shit, man. She is the biggest fucking narcissist in the world. And speaking of anti-SLAPP, that will tie right into Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith. I thought I saw one more question here, which I failed to grab. Stand by. Ciao, how are you doing, my friend? I swear on delicious muffins that one of these days I'm going to send you a clip on the tie for this SBTV's news anchorman position. Thank you. I'm not gunning for the position, but if you're willing to give it, Chow, I'll take it. I thought there was one other question here that I missed. Okay, there it is. Thank you for your question, love it. What's the name of the Epstein doc? It's called Epstein's Shadow. I promise you, I'll link it in the description box very shortly after we finish. Give me 20 minutes and I'll put everything that I said I'm going to put, including that doc, in the description box. If you haven't seen it, check it out. And the reason they got so much mainstream information on there, by the way, love it, is because, or they got so much like information in there, including the Mossad connections. And, you just got to watch it. The reason that they were able to put that out is because it was basically a hit piece on Trump. So it's like, we'll expose all the stuff that we don't show normally in documentaries. But then whenever they bring on a real whistleblower who would say some damning information, they would immediately follow it up with QAnon, the lizard people conspiracy, and all sorts of, and pinning it on Trump, so that your mind, by the end of the documentary, would forget about all the good information they put in there and go, oh, it must be Trump's fault. So in other words, they kind of, that's what they do in a lot of things. They put out a lot of information and then they bend it and propagandize it towards how they want. But for your viewing pleasure, I removed all the fucking propaganda so it flows smoothly. Okay, my friends, we'll see you later today. I guess we're going to go with this outro to remind you, never listen to a madman like you're about to hear in Hubbard. Never join Scientology, and his bridge to total freedom is actually the bridge to total fucking amnesia.
We have the idea of a bridge across the chasm. Now that is an old mystic idea that there was a chasm. There was a chasm between this existence, where we are now, and a higher plateau of existence. And that many people trying to make it fell into the abyss.
Little boxes on the hillside, little boxes made of ticky-tacky, little boxes on the hillside, little boxes all the same. And the people in the houses all went to the university where they were put in boxes, and they came out all the same. And there's doctors and lawyers and business executives, and they're all made out of ticky-tacky, and they all look just the same.